Welcome to lesson 14 on prepositional phrases. Now this is the second lesson where we are covering prepositional phrases, and we can see that because of the two up top. The first time in lesson 11 we covered prepositional phrases as they serve as adverbs. Here we're covering prepositional phrases that serve as adjectives. Prepositional phrases that modify nouns, because we know that adjectives describe nouns, are called adjectival prepositional phrases, which are essentially adjective phrases. Now, as we look at the prepositional phrases, it's of course important to help students understand how to identify prepositions. One strategy is by having students learn the preposition song. Another strategy is to provide them with a list of prepositions so that they can go back and reference them. Now, once they're able to identify the preposition, one strategy for students is to find the object of the preposition to ask the question, what? So if we look at this, our prepositions, and of course we have our prepositional phrases underlined in our examples, but if you look at the preposition and ask yourself what, it will give you the object of the preposition or the last word. So she was carrying a bundle of what? Of books. The girl in the middle, the girl in what? In middle. And so we know that that gives us our object of our preposition. The silver vase on the table in the corner, in what? In corner. The water in the pot with the red handle, the water in what? Pot. With what? Handle. And the noun or the object of the preposition is more easily identified in that situation. So let's take a look at our examples here. She was carrying a bundle of books. Now the first thing, of course, that we want to do is block off the prepositional phrase, because once we have the prepositional phrase blocked off, we know that it's not going to go on the baseline. It is always going to go below the baseline. So that's kind of nice once we block off prepositional phrases and we set them aside and deal with them later. All right, so we're going to look at she was carrying a bundle to help us diagram our baseline. So if we look at this case, I know that she is my subject. Now I have to look for a verb, was carrying, so in this case we have a helping verb and an action, our main verb, so this together, was carrying, is our verb, and we know that carrying is something that I can do, so that is action. So we diagram our subject, she was carrying. Now we have to see if we have a direct object by asking ourselves whom or what. So she was carrying whom or what? Well, she was carrying a bundle, so we know that that is our direct object. Now, what is helpful about blocking off the prepositional phrases first is that most students would want to say she was carrying books. But since that's the preposition within the prepositional phrase, we know that that's not an option for us as far as our direct object. So it gives students better guidance as far as content for the baseline. So once I create my baseline, I want to mark off the words she was carrying bundle. Now, which is an article always serving as an adjective, tells us more about bundle. Now, adjective phrases in most cases come after the nouns that they describe. Now in this case, we know that it's a bundle of what? Of books tells us more about the bundle. So again, we put our preposition on the diagonal line, and the object of the preposition, the last word in the prepositional phrase, always goes on the straight line, and any descriptive words go underneath the object of the preposition. Now let's look at one of our examples here. Most people really like the picture on the corner. Okay, so let's follow the steps outlined in our directions. First thing we want to do is to block off the prepositional phrase. So if we look on here, we have on the cover as our prepositional phrase, so we're going to leave that aside. Now we need to look at identifying our subject, verb, and the aspects of our sentence. So most people really like the picture. Okay, so if I look at this sentence, I can see that the subject of the sentence is people. And what do people do? Well, people liked, so I know that that's my verb. And I look at that and I say, is that action or linking? And I can look and identify that that is action. So most people liked whom or what? Well, they liked the picture. So that is my direct object. Okay, so let me go ahead and diagram that part of the sentence. So I have people is the subject. The verb is liked. Since it's action, I put a line straight up and down. They liked the picture. Now what I'm going to do is mark off the words as I diagram my baseline. Now I have to go back and identify the rest of words. I know that they're going to go below because they're not part of the baseline. So if I look at this, tell me more about people. Well, most people, so most is modifying people, goes on the diagonal line. People liked, and to what extent did they like? And a lot of times, obviously, adverbs can end in ly. They don't always have to, but that's a good indication. So to what extent did they like? Well, they really liked. So we know we have an adverb, really. And the, of course, is an article serving as an adjective, describes picture. Now we need to identify on the cover. Is this, what word is this telling us more about? Well, if I look at my baseline and identify the nouns in my sentence, I can tell that's a picture on the cover. Okay, so on the cover tells us more about picture. We put the prepositional phrase on the diagonal line. The object of the preposition, we can identify that by saying on what, on cover, goes on the straight line. And of course, all the words in between are either going to be adjectives or adverbs. And in this case, the we know is an adjective telling us more about cover. Now, if we look at number 2, with good weather, the climbers will reach the top of the mountain in 3 days. Now, in this particular sentence, we have quite a few prepositional phrases. So let's first look for our prepositional phrases and block those off. First one we have is with good weather. The next one we have is of. Now, I have to figure out where these end, and always ask yourself what. So with what? With weather. Of, the climbers will reach the top of the mountain in 3 days. Of what? Of mountain. So I know that it ends there. Next one is in what? In days. So I know my prepositional phrase ends there. So at the end of this, all we really have to worry about for our baseline is the climbers will reach the top. So if I look at that, what do I have as my subject is climbers. What are climbers going to do, or do I have a linking verb? Well, I know that they will reach, so we have a helping verb and a main verb. Will reach, can I reach? I can reach, so I know that that's an action verb. Will reach who or what? Well, they're going to reach the top. And so that's my direct object. And again, this is very helpful because most of the time you would want to say will reach the mountain, but you realize that top is actually the direct object. So if we go through and diagram the sentence, I'm going to start with my subject, and it's climbers. And I know climbers will reach. And that's action. I have a direct object. Will reach whom or what? Well, they're going to reach the top. Okay, once I get my baseline, I need to mark off the words I've used. Climbers will reach top. Now let me go back here. The, we know is an adjective describing climbers. And that we have another article or adjective, the, describing top. So now once we go through there, we need to figure out our prepositional phrases and identify where they're going to go. Now in this particular case, we have adverb phrases as well as adjective phrases. So when we look at with good weather, okay, when we look at, I usually go through the baseline, see if there's any prepositional phrases, which words they will be describing. So do any of the prepositional phrases tell us more about climbers? With good weather, well, that doesn't tell us about climbers. Of the mountain in 3 days, that's not going to tell us about climbers either. So when we look at will reach, so for our adverb questions, how, where, when, why, to what extent, and what manner. So they will reach in what manner? Well, they're going to reach it with good weather. So we put our preposition on the diagonal line, and then we add the object of the preposition, straight line, so we have with weather. And what type of weather? Well, it's good weather. Okay, so we've used this prepositional phrase. Now, when will they reach it? Well, they're going to reach it in 3 days. So I know that that's another preposition that I need to put here. So I put the preposition on the straight line. I'm going to make this a little longer to give myself some room. So the preposition goes on the line. The last word, the object, the preposition goes on the straight line. So it's in days. Tell me more about the days. Well, it's 3 days. Okay, so I've got that. Now the top, is it the top of an ice cream cone, top of the house? What is the top of? Well, it's the top of the mountain. So with good weather and in 3 days are both adverb phrases, modifying the verb. of the mountain is an adjective phrase telling us more about top. And obviously the direct object is a noun, so anything that goes under a noun is an adjective. So we put our preposition on the diagonal line. The object of the preposition, which is noun or pronoun, in this case it's mountain. Okay, and the is describing mountain. So we've used all the words in our sentence.